Here you see my Sony model DCR TRV350 Digital 8 Handycam from 2005 or 4, I forget. I of course brought back my Hi8 camcorder back here from my mother's house, and of course when I use my Hi8 Handycam I need to use a Digital 8 Handycam to stream the Hi8 recording into the computer so I can edit it and put it on YouTube. I always use the TRV340, that's the one that's a year older than this, just because I like the 340 better. It's got more features and, a nice display on the LCD and all that stuff. But I decided this time to bring back the 350 because I never use the 350, and honestly, if the 340 is what I prefer to use, I ought to save wear and tear on it by using the 350 if all I'm going to do is to use it to stream into the computer. Because if I ever want to actually film a video using Digital 8, I like to use the 340 rather than the 350. So I brought the 350 back here with me to use to stream Hi8 videos into the computer. And I haven't used this thing in about a year or thereabouts at all. Well, the first time I used this thing to stream a Hi8 video into the computer, it was the last video I made on this channel, the update video. It was playing back into the computer just fine, and then all of a sudden, I was watching the stream on the computer as it was playing back, and all of a sudden it stopped playing and it started playing in slow motion, and it was really noisy. And I noticed this immediately, and I'm like, whoa, what the heck? But not knowing what would happen, I decided just to let it play out and see what it did. I figured, Handycam's probably smart enough to stop playing once it realizes something's wrong. Which it did. It went on for about 5 seconds, and then it stopped playing and gave an error code on the LCD. And that was it. And I'm like, alright, it must have ate the tape, I guess. So I opened the tape compartment, and it started making the motions for the deck to eject, and it didn't. I heard the motor, grind to a halt. It stalled. And I thought, oh geez, it's really eating the tape. So I take the battery out here. So I had the door open, it failed to eject. I closed it and took the battery out, put it back in, tried it again. Same thing, and did it a couple more times. Eventually the deck would start to come out like a couple of millimeters, and then it would get stuck, and then it would push itself back in. Well, eventually enough tries to get it to eject. It did successfully eject the tape. The tape did survive. I'm using it right now. And the tape itself was pulled out of the cassette a couple of inches, and it was a little bit wrinkly, but I reeled it back in, and the tape's just fine now. It's got a slightly damaged spot a few seconds long, but no matter. So I thought, okay, it's probably fine now. Well, now I'll put the battery in. Eject it here. Maybe. Well, that's interesting. There's a little infrared LED in there. So the deck was open, I got the tape out, I figured all was well. Well, I went to close the deck, and you can see now it latches closed like it should. But this time, after I'd removed the tape, the deck wouldn't latch close. I'd push it down and it would just pop right back up. And I thought, okay, that's kind of weird. So I took the battery out and put it back in, and the loading motor made a little noise, and I tried again, and it latched shut. And it retracted back into the cassette compartment. Now I thought, okay, the loading mechanism forgot where it was somehow, but all is fine now. So I closed it and reopened it to actually put a tape in it. The deck ejected, I put a tape in, it wouldn't latch shut again. I thought, what the heck? So I took the tape out, took the battery out, put it back in, loading motor made a noise, it latched shut and retracted just fine. Open it back up, stick a tape in, or it didn't matter whether or not the tape would go in, it wouldn't latch shut. It would always latch shut after I removed and reinserted the battery, but it wouldn't latch shut thereafter. And furthermore, if I ejected the mechanism, let me put the battery back in, might retract, open it back up here. So furthermore, if I left it just like this with the deck open and left the battery in, and it wouldn't latch shut, if you waited about 20 or 30 seconds, it would all of a sudden try to retract the mechanism back into the camcorder with it still open, which obviously isn't going to work. So it's still open here and it's trying to push it back in, and obviously it gets caught and it stalls, and eventually it just stops and it spits out an error message on the LCD. So I thought, geez, you know, something's going on here. So I tried for the heck of it. I took the battery out and put it back in and stuck a tape in and closed the deck, and it started to retract, but it only went a few millimeters, and then it just stopped and spit out an error message. And that's when I knew something was seriously wrong with this thing. I didn't know what was going on. Well, I asked YouTube's foremost authority on Sony camcorders, and that would be Westlife, and I wrote him a personal message detailing, you know, what's going on with this thing and what I tried and all that stuff. Well, while I was waiting for him to get back to me, I did some Googling, and I saw a lot of forum posts of people who had this, not this exact problem, but similar, you know, tape loading problems with Sony camcorders. And for a lot of them, the fix was physical violence. They just took the camcorder and they slapped it and banged the camcorder against a table and all this stuff, and it fixed the problem. Well, I didn't want to risk damaging my Digital8 camcorder, but I decided to give it a try anyway. So I gave it some moderate bangs on the case, and it didn't work. Well, eventually I got discouraged and I just started really banging on the thing, not out of frustration, just because I was out of ideas on what to try. Well, lo and behold, after many hard slaps on this thing, it works just fine now, as you can see. Wow, that's really, really strange. Physical violence fix this camcorder. That's odd, I didn't do anything. So yeah, that's kind of neat. So I messaged Westlife back and I said, hey, I fixed it by whacking the crap out of it. And he said something which I now recall him saying in videos before. He's like, yeah, the Whack-A-Sony method really works well for problems like that. And that rings a bell. I remember him talking about the Whack-A-Sony method before. Whacking Sony camcorders fixes a lot of deck problems, apparently, which is really funny. What happened? I have no clue. All I can guess is probably from sitting unused, there was a piece of dust or dirt or a hair or something that got stuck in either a sensor or a rotary encoder or something and caused it not to work properly, and that made this thing just completely drop the ball. It ate the tape because the pickup reel wasn't moving anymore for whatever reason, and it had no idea, this thing had no idea what its own mechanism was doing because something wasn't communicating with the circuitry right, and this thing just completely took a crap. Hitting it, assuming this is what actually happened, hitting it would have dislodged it from wherever this piece of dirt or whatever was and cleared up the problem. This thing corrected itself thereafter, and wow, works just fine. Holy cow. So if I demonstrate with this Video 8 tape, I don't use this tape in my High 8 camcorder because using a Video 8 tape in a High 8 camcorder causes it to go into a Video 8 compatibility mode that yields lower quality. But Digital 8 camcorders don't care. They'll record Digital 8 video onto Video 8. No difference. So we'll stick that in there. And Should hopefully. It did load the tape just fine. And there it is. Working just fine. Thank goodness. So, there's the near death and subsequent resurrection of my Sony DCR TRV350 Digital8 Handycam. Thanks to V Westlife for at least considering to help me, even though I got it fixed before he had a chance to get back to me. Whatever. And you know, when I never think about these camcorders anymore. It's just, you know, automatic to use them, but I sometimes have to remember how I got these to start with. V Westlife gave both this camcorder and the TRV340 to me. He sold them to me for a very, very good price, and I've always appreciated it because he offered these to me at a very important time when my old JVC Mini DV camcorder had finally worn to the point where it was unusable, and I was out of a camcorder, and it really stunk. And of course I had my digital camera, but that thing I don't like to use for video recording because it's got no zoom, and it's missing a lot of other stuff. And I was out of a camcorder and really didn't have the budget to buy another one, and you know, he came to the rescue with these things, and I still appreciate it. I've never been happier. I love this camcorder and the 340 so much, and I love using them, and they're incredibly handy for testing VCRs and other camcorders as well. Incredibly nice camcorders. I've always been glad to have them. So to finish this video, I did make a test video on this camcorder right after I discovered it was working again. So here's that video, and thank you for watching. Okay, this is the first test of the Digital8 camcorder after it died, and then I spanked it back to life. It seems to be working so far. I gave it a bunch of, you know, I gave it a good rough housing in the VCR mode, playing and fast forwarding and rewinding and playing all in rapid succession, and it did it all just fine. Wow, that was strange. That was scary. I thought I lost one of my Digital8 camcorders. I wasn't scared as much as I was mad, because this is the TRV350, the one I rarely use. I always use the TRV340, and I bought the 340, or I brought the 350 back here with me instead of the 340 to give the 340 a rest. You know, save wear and tear on it. Yet this is the camcorder that breaks the very first time I use it in a year thereabouts. So it frustrated me that this one, the one I never use, would be the one to break. But you know, I gave it a good smacking, and geez, it fixed it. There must have been the errors it was throwing meant the capstan motor couldn't work. You know, it wasn't running, or something was keeping it from running, or something like that. So that would be why it ate the tape to start with. So the only thing I can think of was either a piece of, well, not either. It really is the only thing I can think of is a piece of dirt or something must have gotten in the way of the capstan motor, or a sensor, or a rotary encoder, or something. And this thing just completely dropped the ball. It killed off the proper eject sequence too. It wouldn't eject correctly, and it wouldn't inject correctly. But now it seems to be working, so I'm going to stop playing and rewind it and play it into the computer, and we'll see if it does it correctly.